Let's take an early look into 2025 NFL draft eligible quarterbacks. That plus a whole lot more comes up on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for June 21st, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available. As always, if you're checking us out on YouTube, you know we appreciate that. The show grows each and every day, and that's because of you, Raider Nation, and my man Ari. Ari does a fantastic job making sure we're on YouTube, we're looking good, we're sounding good. Even when I'm on vacation, he's making sure that we do what we're supposed to do. So we shout him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. I'm on Twitter as well, at your boy Q254. And you know, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. Won't have any calls or texts. Won't have any calls or texts until July 1st when I get back from vacation. Just giving you some best of shows, some shows that, interviews that I was really proud of that we've done over the course of, the past year or so on either Raider Nation Radio 920 or here on the Locked On Raider podcast, or even in and around town as I've been at a lot of different events and really blessed to have that opportunity. So trying to bring you some really good stuff just to somewhat entertain and inform in the meantime, in between time, while myself and the wife get a little bit of R&R, a little rest and relaxation. So coming up on the show today, segment number 2 and 3, Max Chadwick. He's from Pro Football Focus. He does college football. He really deep dives into college football, really good at what he does. He joined my radio show to talk about college quarterbacks, and guys to be on the lookout for the 2025 NFL draft. Not that I'm trying to do mock drafts and all that other stuff, just trying to get us familiar with some of the names that may be available if the Raiders so choose to dip into the draft and go get another guy if Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew is not the guy. It just goes along with the conversation we've been having here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So that's in segment number 2. Segment number 3. Here in segment number 1, I had an opportunity to catch up with Jacoby Ford at the Alumni Wellness Weekend, the first annual that the Raiders put on at the M Resort. It was at the M Pavilion. It was a fantastic event. A lot of players were there, including Jacoby Ford, so you hear that conversation. Matter of fact, we'll jump right into it. As a matter of fact, we'll do it right now here in segment number 1. I caught up with a lot of players, and you'll hear multiple players throughout the course of the next few days. But Jay Schrader and Nick Bell, they actually led things off. Marcus Allen and Tim Brown had an opportunity to catch up with them. Ryan Hogue, the wide receiver that the Raiders drafted, Mr. Irrelevant, the very last player in the draft, and he was there. Sandra Douglas Morgan, the president. Ira Matthews, a longtime old school Raider, he was there. Orrin O'Neal, former fullback, he was there. Bill Romanowski, and then, of course, Jacoby Ford. So I had an opportunity to catch up with all those guys, and I had no idea when they invited me to come out. They just said, hey, we'll have a booth for you. You set up your equipment and be good to go. And, you'll probably be able to talk to a few of the players that walk by. And, man, all those players just coming like boom, 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 boom. Sandra Douglas Morgan showed up. I mean, it was incredible just how much, and how many alumni were at the event. Really good event put on by the Raiders. So I got to give them a lot of credit for that. But Jacoby Ford, one of my favorite guys, the last guy to actually have a kickoff return for a touchdown in the silver and black. So had that tribute to Cliff Branch at Allegiant Stadium. That was awesome. I didn't even realize it was him until after it was all said and done. So he's just one of those guys. When he was out there on the field rocking the silver and black, you always knew that a big play was in front of him. Like there was a big play possibility whenever Jacoby Ford was out there on the field. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the conversation I had with the former Raider wide receiver and kick returner, Jacoby Ford. Pleased to have on the show now Jacoby Ford. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
Good. It's funny you sat down and my guy said, I don't know if that's Jacoby Ford or Cliff Branch.
Man, I know. Ever since I did the that tribute to him, man, that actually was touching for me.
That was awesome.
I actually saw like a little video of him today that actually got me a little bit just to see him alive talking.
Yeah.
So definitely rest in peace to Cliff Branch. Definitely miss him.
Yeah, man, you did a hell of a job. I mean, that was one of those that we were talking about that event for a while.
Thank you.
Hamstrings
was on fire after that too.
I wanted to ask you, and I've been dying to talk to you. I wanted to ask you what you thought about the new kickoff rule and how that can affect the game.
Dude, I honestly love it, to be honest, because now I feel like it brings that dynamic back to the game, and that's something that I feel like they took away.
Yeah.
Not because of the returners, but just because you want to prevent safety, you want to keep players safe, which I understand. But whenever you take away the return part of the game, it kind of takes away that ooh, the ah, then you can get the crowd just kind of going behind you. And I really think this is now going to bring that back. And now you can have those guys hold on to those spots a little longer now in the league that, are primary return guys, special teams guys. So I definitely think it's going to bring that back, and I'm super excited to see it.
I am too. And the one thing that we've learned is being at OTAs, we're kind of watching. Don't let the speedsters, the Jacoby Fords, don't let them catch the ball in the air. Because if not, if you catch it in the air, you're gone.
Yeah.
They wouldn't catch you.
No. And, and the thing is, you get past one level on this, it's like you're done. It's done.
Right.
So I think it's gonna be fun. I honestly can't wait to see it.
No, I'm excited about that as well. But this event that's going on is the Alumni Wellness Weekend. You see a lot of the greats. You see a lot of your former teammates walking around. What kind of event? How does this feel for you just to be a part of this?
Dude, honestly, I feel blessed. I'm so blessed to have been drafted by the Raiders, Al Davis. I honestly couldn't have asked for a better situation, because everything that they're doing now with the alumni to just make us still feel like we're a part of this organization honestly feels amazing. Because, a lot of guys try to find their way after football, and it's kind of tough. And just to kind of have that camaraderie around football again, and to be around these guys, the older guys, to where you have, guys in my generation to the guys under me.
Yeah.
It's just great to connect with everybody, because everybody knows each other. And then when you get a chance to be around them all and they bring us back, it just kind of feels like a big locker room again. And, we get to have fun, and you couldn't ask for anything better.
No, you really can't. And, we had Ryan Hogue on earlier, and he's like, man, I only was with the Raiders for a quick minute, but once a Raider, always a Raider.
Matter.
It doesn't matter.
It does not matter if you were here for a day, a week. It doesn't matter. Once you put that silver and black on, you are a Raider in our eyes, and I love that they do that, because that means a lot to a lot of people. Just that they can call somewhere home. So I absolutely love it.
What did it mean to you to be able to put on that silver and black? What did that mean to you?
And it meant a lot. I mean, that was the first team that gave me my shot in this league. I got to play for the great, for the great Al Davis. Tom Cable was there. He trusted me. Then that whole coaching staff, Hugh Jackson, Al Saunders. All my quarterbacks, just that camaraderie that I had, man. But it felt great. It felt like I belonged.
Yeah.
I felt like home. Oakland still feels like home. Oakland still feels like home. The town still feels like home. Town business all day. The town still feels like home, and it just made me feel welcome there. And I mean, I loved every single bit of it, man. I wouldn't have changed anything.
Well, I'll tell you, man. I talk about those teams that you were on all the time. I don't know what buttons Hugh Jackson was pressing, but it's like you guys were always in position to make plays.
Yeah, Hugh Jackson honestly was a magician at putting his players in position to make plays.
Yeah. And
he always played to our strengths, and he let us play fast and let us play to what we were really good at. And that's how he would focus the offense on. So if you're in the groove and you're going, he's going to find a way to get you the ball. He wants to get his best players on the field, get his best players the ball. And that's something he always did. And he always had a package for us all. And we just trusted the game plan. And like I said, it's only one football. So
right.
You got to be just patient, just wait your turn. But, hey, whenever he challenges you, you take it to heart. Because, he told me I wouldn't get, I think, more than 10 yards on a reverse against Denver. And I think I took it to the house 71 yards. And I came back, I told him I told you so.
Right.
So, when you get stuff like that, man, you have just that camaraderie of your OC, man. And he's just a person to just put you in a position to make plays. It makes your job a lot easier out there.
I love the fact that you know the exact yardage on that play.
Of course, got to.
Did you ever have a moment that you felt like that was your favorite moment from your time in the league? Was there one play, or was it a season, a certain team? Was there anything that was just like, that was that for me? I mean, look, you're still the last guy to take one to the house for the.
Yeah, no, still holding on to that.
I don't know if your ears ring, but that comes up all the time. Jacoby Ford is still the last one every year. Jacoby Ford's it.
I think it's crazy, but I mean, it's at the end of the day. I mean, they definitely need to. I think now there's definitely a chance to get that home run back there, and I would love to see somebody take one back since me. So, but hey, it keeps my name a little relevant, still keeps me around. So I mean, hey, I don't mind it at all.
Jacoby, you will always be relevant. Absolutely, Raider Nation loves hearing from you. We love hanging out with you.
I love the nation,
man. Thanks so much for giving us a few minutes of your time. Enjoy this weekend, right? Celebrate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate y'all. Thanks for having me on.
So there's my conversation right there with Jacoby Ford, and as I mentioned, conversation. All these players that I had an opportunity to catch up with, you'll hear throughout the course of the next few days as I'm doing best of shows from Jay Schrader and Nick Bell, Marcus Allen and Tim Brown, Ryan Hogue, Sandra Douglas Morgan, Ira Matthews, the wide receiver kick returner. There's another kick returner right there, Orrin O'Neal and Bill Romanowski. You'll hear all those conversations, not all of them, but you'll hear a lot of those conversations in the next handful of days. But hopefully you enjoyed that with Jacoby Ford. Coming up in segment number 2, part 1 of my conversation with Max Chadwick from Pro Football Focus as we dip into 2025 quarterbacks, guys that are in college football, guys that will be trying to build their draft stock throughout the course of the college football season, upcoming college football season. You'll hear part 1 of that conversation coming up next in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money's back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast for this Friday. Again, little best of edition as I'm vacationing and look forward to coming back, but I'm not coming back till July 1st. So really getting some good away time, some down and out time just to relax, like good down and out, right? Down and out could be bad, but this is good down and out where it's like staying real super low key, not doing too much social media and all that other stuff, just really decompressing. So I want you to hear this conversation that I had an opportunity to catch up with Max Chadwick from Pro Football Focus. Does a great job covering college football. He's actually on Twitter at Max Chadwick CFB. So if you want to check him out, check out his work he does for Pro Football Focus, you can. But here's part 1 of the conversation. We started off talking about veteran quarterbacks in the NFL as opposed to quarterbacks in the draft and what some NFL teams might decide to do. Here's part 1 of the conversation with Pro Football Focus's Max Chadwick.
I wanted to start off just talking about the quarterbacks in general, and you see all the money that these guys are getting paid across the National Football League. We see Trevor Lawrence just sign a deal, $55 million a year. Do you think that teams will start to really try to invest more into the draft to get their quarterbacks as opposed to paying that big, outrageous money like a Trevor Lawrence just got?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, right? I don't necessarily hate the Lawrence contract. In fact, I think it was a fine deal by Jacksonville. I think, in a couple of years when you start getting more and more quarterbacks that are signing these contracts, it's going to not look as much a comparison, right? That's how it really works with this quarterback market that keeps booming and booming. But I think, if you don't have a top 8 to 10 quarterback in the league, I wouldn't pay top dollar for them. What I would do is I would try to go in the draft and get a quarterback on a rookie contract, which I think is the most valuable thing, not only in the NFL, but probably in sports, is a quarterback on a rookie contract nowadays. So, I think if you have a top 8 to 10 guy, then pay him. But if you don't have that guy, then keep drafting until you find him, honestly.
One guy's that name keeps popping up is Dak Prescott because of his unique situation that he has where he can't be franchise tagged and he can't be traded unless he approves of a trade. If somehow the Cowboys don't re-sign him, do you see a lot of teams really trying to vie for his abilities and his services at $60 million a year?
Yeah, I honestly think so. I think he's a guy that if he plays similarly to what he did this past season, I thought he was definitely a top 10 quarterback in the league this past season, and maybe even better than that. So, I think there's definitely, if the Cowboys let him walk, I think there's definitely going to be a lot of teams that are willing to pay over $50 million a year for a guy like Dak Prescott because, like I said, if you can get a top 8 to 10 guy, which I think Dak is, he's worth that top money, and I think there's going to be a team that's willing to pay that.
Man, that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. So, like you said, that rookie quarterback and that rookie quarterback deal is the most valuable in the NFL and probably most valuable in sports. Again, Max Chadwick is our guest from Pro Football Focus here on Raider Nation Radio 920. So I did want to deep dive into just the quarterbacks that are going to be coming up that we should be on the lookout for in 2025. And I see you guys already put out mock drafts for 2025, and I don't want to get into all that. It's way too early for that. But who are the real headline names that we should be on the lookout as far as quarterbacks that are going to come up in the 2025 draft?
Yeah, I think what people need to understand about next year's quarterback class is that there isn't, last summer, for example, Caleb Williams and Drake May were seen as these superstar talents, and they ended up being that, and both of them ended up being top 3 picks. We don't have that right now, right? I think the top guys that I would probably put out there are Carson Beck from Georgia, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, Quinn Ewers from Texas. All 3 of those guys could have declared for the draft this year, and if they did, they would have been in at least the J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix range, not in the top 3 range of Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May. So those are my top 3 right now, at least. PFF lead draft analyst Trevor Sikkema actually has Connor Wegman from Texas A&M as his top quarterback in the draft. Wegman only played 4 games last year, but he looked really, really good in those 4 games. He's got a lot of intriguing tools, but it really is a wide open quarterback class, especially at the top right now. I do think there's some intriguing options, like the depth is pretty good, but at the top, it's just not as star-studded as we've had in past drafts.
Max Chadwick is with us here on Raider Nation Radio 920, talking all things quarterbacks coming up in the 2025 draft. So let's start with Carson Beck from Georgia. Obviously, the Raiders went and drafted his Georgia teammate in Brock Bowers. What do you see from Beck that you really like about him, which will probably make him the first quarterback taken?
Yeah, I think right now he is the favorite to be QB1 in next year's draft, and I think he's QB1 in college football right now. I think he plays with precise timing, precise accuracy. I mean, he was one of the 5 most accurate quarterbacks in the nation last year, and one of the 5 fastest in terms of average time to throw as well. So this guy gets rid of the football quickly and accurately to all 3 levels of the field really well. He's just a great pocket passer, honestly, right? And he's not going to be a guy that's really going to do much in the ground game, and he doesn't really have a rocket launcher of an arm. But I just think he's just a clean quarterback overall. And, he was a top 5 quarterback in college football last year, and, Georgia's bringing back the best quarterback in the country now. So I just think his timing and his accuracy and his feel for the game, I think that's what makes him so good. And he's got a good enough arm, too. But I just think the physical tools aren't overwhelming, but he really is a clean quarterback prospect overall.
So you see that, his arm and just the prospect that he is and just his different abilities, you see that translating pretty well to the NFL?
Yeah, I do. I think, the comparison I would make is Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff is a guy that obviously went number one overall in his draft, and the Lions just paid a boatload of money to. I don't know if I would have done that. But I think he's a guy that is a lot like that, right? With a good arm. He can throw it all 3 levels of the field, gets rid of the football quickly, good accuracy. He's really good when he's in a good environment. I think you see the same thing with Jared Goff. When things start to break down, that's when you see Beck and Goff kind of struggle a little bit. And both of them are not really mobile quarterbacks at all either. So that's kind of if you're trying to think of okay, what is Carson Beck in the NFL? I think Jared Goff is the best comparison you can make.
Max Chadwick from Pro Football Focus is with us here on Raider Nation Radio 920. One of the most intriguing names is Shedeur Sanders in Colorado. Obviously, that's Prime's son. I liked some of the things I saw from Shedeur last year. Didn't like everything that I saw from him. Where does he need to develop? What does he need to work on the most, did you think, this year to make sure that he solidifies himself as a top QB?
Yeah, I think, he really, and it's not even something that he can control. He is excellent from a clean pocket. He actually had the 3rd best passing grade from a clean pocket last year. The only 2 above him were Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, who were the first 2 picks of the draft. So from a clean pocket, there is no better quarterback in college football than Shedeur Sanders. Now, the problem is Colorado rarely gave him clean pockets last year with how bad that offensive line was. But I think Shedeur is an excellent processor. He reads defenses really well. He always knows where to go with the football. I think the physical tools aren't the best, which is why I'm not as high on him as maybe a Carson Beck. But I do think he's a good enough quarterback overall with good accuracy. And like I said, he's so smart. I think his best trait, honestly, is his mind, honestly. I think he's such a smart quarterback. And that's why I think he's going to be really good. And I think, if the offensive line can protect him even more, he could show that even more next year and maybe take over as QB1.
Did it show at times, or did you get a sense at times that he may have held on to the ball a little bit too long?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the offensive line definitely contributed to a lot of the sacks he took last year. I think he had the most sacks in the Power 5. But also him holding on to the ball for a while contributed to that as well. So he even said himself he was not comfortable in the offense last year. They ran a lot of option routes at Colorado. It's way more of a structured offense this year. So I think that should he's going to look a lot more comfortable and probably will get rid of the football a lot quicker than he was last year. I think he just wasn't really that comfortable in the offense last year. And he still played at a very high level, which is saying a lot to his talent. So, I think that's definitely an area of improvement for him, and I think you'll see him improve in that aspect this year.
Is there a quarterback that's currently in the league that you look at and say that he's comparable to?
That's a good question. Again, he's a guy that doesn't really have great traits right now. I don't really think there's a clean comp that you can give for a guy like Shedeur Sanders right now. But I do think, again, I would probably take this guy in the top 15 to 20 of the NFL draft if it was today right now. I think a guy, I'm looking at the list right now, I think a guy like Tua Tagovailoa makes a lot of sense. For Shedeur Sanders is a guy who doesn't really have a great arm in terms of arm strength and arm talent, but is very accurate, is a very smart quarterback. That's kind of what Shedeur reminds me of a little bit. And they're both kind of underrated runners, too. They can both scramble out and make a play if they need to. So I think a guy like Tua Tagovailoa is something that maybe like a archetype that I'd maybe point to for Shedeur Sanders.
So there was part one of the conversation with Max right there, just talking all things college quarterbacks. And also you heard talking about veteran quarterbacks, dipped into the Dak conversation, and even Trevor Lawrence and the money that is being rolled out. Again, Trevor Lawrence got a $55 million a year deal. Dak Prescott at some point is going to hit around $60 million per year. He's going to get paid a whole lot of money. Coming up in segment number three, part two of my conversation, where we'll actually start off talking about the quarterbacks that were drafted in this past April's draft, the 6 in the top 12. We'll start off with that in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Time to jump into part 2 of the conversation I had with Pro Football Focus's Max Chadwick, talking all things college quarterbacks. But as we start things off in this segment, we'll actually start off the conversation with me asking about the 6 quarterbacks drafted in the top 12 of this past April's draft. Obviously, the Raiders did not get one, but 6 teams did. That's how this conversation starts, well, at least part 2 of it, with Max Chadwick.
This past draft, we saw 6 quarterbacks get selected in the top 12. And again, this was a special draft, but do you look at some of those quarterbacks and feel like that they have a much better chance to succeed than others? Like Caleb Williams is walking into a pretty good situation with all the weapons that he has around him. But are there any of those other quarterbacks that you feel really comfortable and confident that they're going to succeed in the NFL?
Yeah, I think Caleb Williams is definitely the first one. Not only is he the best prospect and one of the best quarterback prospects I've ever seen personally, but you mentioned he's walking into an amazing situation in Chicago, and I honestly think the Bears could be playing in the playoffs next year. In fact, I might even predict that they're going to go to the playoffs next year. So that's a great situation for him. And the other one I would probably throw out there is J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. He's got an excellent situation in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell as his head coach, who's one of the top offensive minds in the game right now. You obviously got the best receiver in the world in Justin Jefferson, a really good number 2 receiver in Jordan Addison, a really good tight end as well in T.J. Hawkinson, a really good offensive line with 2 great tackles in Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, and a good run game as well with led by Aaron Jones. So yeah, I think Minnesota and J.J. McCarthy, he's in the best. I even think it's a better situation than Chicago, in my opinion, honestly.
Wow.
So I think J.J. McCarthy and Caleb Williams, really the 2 new NFC North quarterbacks, are both in excellent situations right now.
What do you think about Bo Nix's situation there in Denver as they selected him right before the Raiders had an opportunity to select a quarterback? They ended up taking Brock Bowers, but they ended up taking Bo Nix from Oregon. What do you think about that fit?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? I think I don't love the supporting talent around Bo Nix. I think Denver's probably going to be one of the 3 or 5 worst teams in the NFL this year. But this is exactly the quarterback that Sean Payton wants. I think one of the biggest reasons why Russell Wilson did not work out in Denver with Sean Payton was that Russell Wilson goes off script a lot, right? He tries to make a play on his own and go outside of the structure of the offense. That is not what Sean Payton wants. He wants a quarterback who's going to run his offense the way that it's designed at a high level, a lot like Drew Brees did. And that's precisely what Bo Nix did at Oregon, right? He ran the Oregon offense at a super high level, but didn't really go off script too much. And that's exactly why Sean Payton fell in love with Bo Nix. In fact, Sean Payton, who also loved Patrick Mahomes in the draft, there was a report that came out that Sean Payton actually liked Bo Nix just as much as he liked Patrick Mahomes coming out of college. So I don't know what to make of that, honestly.
Right.
But this is certainly the kind of quarterback that Sean Payton was looking for, and it was kind of an open secret even before the draft that Denver was probably going to be targeting Bo Nix in this draft.
Max Chadwick, Pro Football Focus, is with us here on Raider Nation Radio 920. Unnecessary roughness. Are you seeing these quarterbacks have a better chance to succeed because there's more elements of the college game being put into and introduced into the NFL these days?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think also supporting cast is huge, and I think NFL teams are doing a really good job, or some of them at least, are doing a pretty good job of supporting their quarterbacks. I think if you don't have a good supporting cast, like, for example, New England, I'm kind of worried about Drake May right now with the supporting cast that he's got in New England. But a guy like Caleb Williams and Jason McCarthy, I think, yeah, they're in good spots to succeed. And I think, yeah, a lot of the college elements of the college offense being implemented in the NFL, that helps a lot too. And then also, honestly, I think that the level of talent that we're getting at the quarterback position is increasing every single year. I mean, these kids are being trained from the time they're like 7 years old to be quarterbacks. And they're really, that's why you're seeing them entering college more ready than ever. You're seeing them enter the NFL more ready than ever. I think the talent level at quarterback is increasing every single year. I think that's a big part of it too.
Well, we'll close out with this, Max. It's been fantastic talking all things quarterbacks with you. 2 years ago, we weren't talking about, at least at this time of year, we weren't talking about Anthony Richardson as a top 5 quarterback. This time last year, I don't think we were talking about Jaden Daniels being a number 2 overall quarterback. Is there a guy that you may have your eyes on, or a couple of guys you have your eyes on that may be dudes that we're talking about as top draft picks that, like I said, we're not talking about right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's always, Zach Wilson comes to mind too in 2021, another guy who just kind of came out of nowhere. You seem to always get that guy at quarterback every year, and this year, especially without top guys at the top, you could see even more. So I think I'll throw out there Connor Wegman again. That's Trevor's QB1 right now. I think, such a limited sample size of him, but he really did look fantastic when he was on the field. So Connor Wegman from Texas A&M to keep an eye on. And then also I'll throw out there Jalen Moreau from Alabama. He's got Kalen DeBoer working with him now. He's got all the physical tools in the world, man. And you saw how well DeBoer did with Michael Penix Jr. developing him. I think if you can do the same with Jalen Moreau, he's kind of a Anthony Richardson light in a lot of areas. That he's got a rocket launch of an arm. He's an excellent quarterback in terms of running ability too. He's got to improve in the intermediate and short areas of the game. Right now he's mainly just a deep ball thrower, but he's got all the tools in the world. So I'll throw out Jalen Moreau and Connor Wegman, 2 SEC quarterbacks that I think could move up draft boards a lot next year.
Yeah, Milroe is intriguing to me because of what you just said. He has a great deep ball, but his intermediate, his little touch passes, seems like he's uncomfortable throwing that. And I know Kalen DeBoer, again, did a fantastic job at Washington. How does he kind of develop that where you get the touch ball? It would seem like the deep ball would be the harder one to throw. How do you kind of develop that touch pass?
Yeah, I think he just, tells he's going to work with Jalen Moreau and be like, listen, man, just take the mustard off of it, right? I mean, he seems to be throwing, rifles every single time he's throwing the ball out there. Now, the one thing that does concern me about Moreau and Alabama in general is that the receiving core is just lacking right now. There really isn't a proven guy in that receiving core. So I think that's definitely a question mark. But like I said, if DeBoer can do as well with Moreau as he did with Michael Penix Jr., I think Moreau even has a lot better tools than Michael Penix Jr. too. The sky is the limit, honestly, for that kid. So I'm really intrigued by that. But, I do think there's a lot of work to be done. And just in terms of polishing up his game, he's got the deep ball. He's one of the best deep ball throwers in the country. In fact, I think he had the second best deep pass attempt grade last year, only behind Jaden Daniels. He's just got to work on the intermediate and short areas of the game because he's got the arm talent. He's got the mobility to be a really, really intriguing quarterback. He's just got to get a little more polish right now.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's a great breakdown of Jalen. I like to watch a lot of Alabama football. Well, final question for you, for real this time. Michael Penix, you mentioned Michael Penix. He's in Atlanta. He's sitting behind Kirk Cousins. What do you think the outcome's going to be for him? Like, is he a guy that translates in the NFL?
Yeah, I think he can. It's going to be interesting to see, how long this goes with Kirk Cousins as a starting quarterback when you have a guy who's taken in the top 10 as his backup. I'm imagining, at least 2 years of Kirk Cousins in Atlanta as their starter. But I like Penix a lot. And, one thing that I really like about his fit in Atlanta, even though it is a very funky fit, don't get me wrong, it's the most shocked I've ever been by a draft pick. But he's got jump ball receivers to throw to in Atlanta right now. That's really where he excelled at Washington, was throwing that jump ball to Rome Odunze and guys like that. So a guy like Drake London, a guy like Kyle Pitts, they're going to be really helpful to him in Atlanta. And they got a great offensive line as well. You got a really up-and-coming running back in Bijan Robinson, who might be one of the best in the league pretty quickly. I think Michael Penix Jr. is going to take a couple years, obviously, with Kirk Cousins as a starting quarterback, but I do think there's an area for him to be a franchise quarterback for the Falcons long term.
Fantastic stuff. That's Max Chadwick from Pro Football Focus on Twitter at Max Chadwick CFB. Max, what are you working on, man, that we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, so I host the PFF College Football Show. You could find on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcast as well. We're kind of putting out a ton of videos on college football, honestly. I can't really hammer it down to one specific thing. But like I said, also check out the PFF.com. All my articles live there. And we're actually working on a massive college football preview guide, previewing all 70 Power 5 teams and 10 more Group of 5 teams as well. So it's going to be a massive thing that's dropping hopefully pretty soon.
So there was the quarterback conversation, little college football action with Max Chadwick from Pro Football Focus. Hopefully that kind of gives you some names to be on the lookout for and kind of see what they do throughout the course. And, of course, there's other names that are out there. There's other names that are going to emerge. Just like Jaden Daniels, he wasn't a guy that was right there in front of everybody's face at the beginning of last year. And Anthony Richardson the year before that. And as Max said, Zach Wilson before that. I mean, these guys, they pop up and you don't realize who it's going to be. And then, well, it ends up being a really good player like a Jaden Daniels. So there's going to be a player or two that are going to pop up, I guarantee it, through the course of this upcoming college football season that will say, man, that's a guy to look out for, right? So hopefully you enjoyed that conversation with Max Chadwick. Coming up on Monday's show, Nick Bell, Jay Schrader from the Alumni Wellness Weekend. You'll hear that conversation. You'll hear the interview I was a part of with Amber Theo Harris and Kirk Morrison on SiriusXM Radio. It was actually Amber's show. She had me on as a guest. That was a fun conversation. And then Antonio Pierce from Media Day with JT DeBrick, Eric Allen, and myself. That was the Raiders Roundtable. That was a lot of fun that we did that. You'll hear all of that coming up on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Until then, Raider Nation, have a fantastic weekend. Take care of your family. Take care of your loved ones. And, of course, as always, just win, baby.